All right, so I was about to drive this thing to go cruise, but I noticed that my timing belt was still pretty loose and it was starting to bother me. So I figured I'd try the shortcut and just loosen the tensioner, see if you could push it down on it to tighten everything back up. And long story short, I did it wrong, I guess, and it skipped a tooth or two. So now I am just going to do it the proper way. So to do that, you're gonna need a 10 mil like socket set or whatever, and then a 12 millimeter wrench. The wrench is to loosen the alternator. So then you want to take your valve cover off. You want to take your crank pulley off, and that's a giant 19. You're gonna need a really strong impact or the Honda special tool. So once you get the big crank pulley off, then you have to take this timing cover off, which is 5 or 6 10 mil bolts. So once you take that cover off, then you can align the oil pump gear onto the block where it's supposed to be. And then you want to align your cam gears, which I'll show you once I get there. Once those are aligned, then you put the belt on properly. And once the belt's on properly, you want to spin it until the left belt is as tight as you can get it to spin. And then what you want to do is use the pry bar to lift up on the tensioner. And then while you're lifting up on the tensioner, tighten the tensioner bolt. That way this side is super tight. And then when you lift up on the tensioner, it'll tighten the right side as well. And then once you tighten the bolt while doing it, then they both stay super tight. That's how I learned to do it. Keep your belt nice and tight. You can over tighten it, so you gotta find a perfect, little area. They say with the timing cover on, your belt is not supposed to be able to turn 90 degrees without like quite forcibly doing it. So I'd say this is a little loose, which obviously it is because I don't have the tensioner tight. So I'm going to take the pulley off and then the belt, and then I'll try to record myself tightening it. So yeah, here we go. Couple important things. I don't know if you guys can see, but here, let me get a light. On the crank pulley, you can see that there is a little, indent where the key is supposed to go near the bottom left. And the key is right here, this little guy. Make sure you do not lose that key. Otherwise, you're gonna have alignment issues and it's gonna be a big mess. Another thing is there's a gear underneath this cover. Not gear, but here, let's see if I can even get it off. But can you guys see that moving? That ring right here? It's actually concaved in a specific way. So when you take it off, make sure you put it back on the exact same way. So what I like to do is just take it off and then set it down, face down. So the face facing down is the face that's also me facing the block when you put it back on. So I put it down and then I slide it out of the way under a jack or whatever. That way I know I won't lose it and flip it the wrong side. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these cover bolts off and then I will show you guys what it looks like. All right, so the crank pulley bolt is back on. That way you can spin the crank. And you can see right here, there's a little mark on the pulley gear that, aligns the engine. And then further up, there is a mark on the oil pump. And then you get this mark on to line up exactly on the mark on the oil pump. And then you have the crank at top dead center. So then you have to come up to the camshafts and make sure they're at top dead center, put the belt on, and then tighten everything. All right, so it's hard to see, but I do have the pulley and the timing mark all lined up on the oil pump. And then I went up here, and there's 2 marks right here and here, and I got them perfectly lined up. So now I gotta have fun putting the belt on, making sure nothing moves out of place, and then we'll tighten it. So now with the belt on, you check that the marks are still lined up, top and bottom, which I already did. So now you wanna take a 14, which is the timing tensioner bolt, and place it on there. And then you come down and you push up on the timing tensioner. So basically, you push up on that thing and then tighten it. Sorry, I have the flashlight in my mouth so you guys can see. So you push up on the piece while tightening the tensioner, and now everything's nice and tight. So before you put everything back together, I strongly recommend you double check that you did it right. So you go in there, make sure it's all lined up, which it's hard to see, but it is lined up down there. And you come up here, and the timing marks are lined up here as well, and both of the arrows are facing up. So you know you did it right. So now it's this reverse process. You put everything back together the way you found it, and you have successfully timed your B18 engine. Alright, so the crank pulley is back on, the timing cover is on, everything is tight. So all I have to do now is put the valve cover gasket on the valve cover, put everything back where it was, and we're good to go. It's that simple. I know it's a pretty daunting task to time your car, especially on these interference engines where you do it wrong and you ruin your engine, but it's not as scary as you think it is. Once you do it once or twice, then you have it all figured out, and it's a breeze. I thought it was scarier than hell on my first engine. I wasn't even the one who doing it. It was a buddy of mine because I just was too afraid of breaking it. But you know, eventually you just gotta do it on your own and learn, progress your knowledge, and yeah, it's not so bad now. I can do it in 25 minutes tops. I'll put this back on, update you guys, start the car. One thing, if you guys get it all finished up and you go drive the car and you feel like it's lacking power, then you know you messed up the timing, probably by one tooth. If you do it more than one tooth, then you probably messed up a lot of other things. But that's why I say double check before you slap everything together, because that seriously will save your engine. You know, if you throw it all together and while you're tightening it or tightening the tensioner, it skips a tooth and you don't realize it, or skips two teeth, you're gonna ruin your engine. So make sure you go through it again, make sure it's all aligned. Another thing is, even at this stage right here, you can turn that crank pulley a full 360 degrees twice, so 720 degrees. And then if they all line up again, then you know you did it right on your timing cover mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and then put everything back together. All right, you guys, so as you can see, I got everything buttoned up. The oil feed is out of the way, the alternator belt is tight. And a couple of things that I ran into is some of these nuts were threading on really hard. And I assume it's just because they're old, and I've tightened them and re-tightened them quite a lot. And instead of just trying to slug them on there, I'm just gonna go buy new ones because they are like, I don't know, 5 cents. So I'm gonna run to Ace Hardware really quick, put those back on, and then this car is ready to rip again. Got the new oil in, everything is good, no leaks so far. I started it up before I did the timing thing, and it was running good. So I think it is ready to just be enjoyed and get a tune into it, which I'm really excited about. All right, so I didn't have my camera with me last night, but I was giving a buddy a joyride, and we were ripping along the interstate, and all of a sudden the car shut off, turned on, shut off, turned on again, and then completely died and had no electrical power at all. So I'm like, all right, well, the battery obviously got disconnected, the terminals weren't tight or something, I don't know. So we pulled over on the interstate because I couldn't go any further, and the terminal was actually kind of smoking right here at the bottom where it connects to the car. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe popped a fuse or grounded somewhere on accident, I don't know. So I went through this huge ordeal of trying to fix it while it was stuck on the side of the road, and eventually at like 11:30 last night, I gave up, drove home, or had my brother come get me so I could drive home, grabbed my truck and went out and grabbed my trailer, and then trailered this thing. And like I said, it was dead. So me and one other friend pushed this car up onto my trailer, and it was a freaking nightmare. So we were able to trailer it back here to my house, push it in, call it a night, and then I've been working on it today. So I went to the junkyard and bought this new ground and this new positive wire along with an 80 amp battery fuse. And I replaced those three things, and it still didn't fix it. No power anywhere. And I'm like, well, when there's no power anywhere, it's definitely something battery related, because even if it was your main fuse, you'd still have electrical power in the car, just no like fuel or anything. So eventually I tested the battery last night and it read 12 volts. So I was like, all right, well, it's not the battery. It was sparking, so I know it had something. So I kept looking at issues, and finally when I decided to test the battery again, and it read 0 volts, like nothing, no battery power whatsoever. So I took it out of there, plopped it in the Maglammer to test it one more time, still 0 volts. I drove to where I got the battery, because it was actually a new battery, like 2 months old. And they're like, oh my God, I've never seen it be completely dead, especially while you were driving the car. I'm like, yeah, everything else is mechanically fine, because the alternator belt's still there, all the plugs are still good, everything was good. So I had them warranty the battery. They gave me a new one. I put it in there and the car fired right up, no problems. So I don't know if I got a bad battery or what happened, but a new battery fixed it for me. So that was pretty cool. It scared the shit out of me. I was like shitting bricks because I was really stressed out leaving my car just on the side of the road, because, well, it's an old Honda. These things are pretty stealable. But obviously no one stole it. I got it back up running good. So yeah, hopefully no more issues other than whatever breaks next. But